Hello class, my name is Blaine Heisner and I'll be your instructor for the AUT-240-250 series this semester, fall 2020. The purpose of today is to give you guys the very first demonstration video of basic electrical repair. We're going to review some basic electrical with a real vehicle with a real problem here in Heisner's garage. This is a 1968 Chevrolet Impala convertible. What was brought to me with a real problem, the symptom of the tail lamps are inoperative. The brake lamps, the backup lamps, and the turn signal lamps all function properly. The customer additionally stated that the fuse blows repeatedly. So what we're going to do is we're going to verify the symptoms. We're going to use basic tools. We're going to discover some testing that we want to perform, do those tests, and move forward with our diagnosis, and hopefully we can repair this vehicle properly and then verify that repair at the end of the day. So I hope that you enjoy this video. I know that I'm going to enjoy making it for you, and this will be an example of the type of videotaped video demonstration that we're going to try to do for the remainder of the semester. We're going to put some of these online for you guys, so I hope you enjoy them. And we'll get started on this repair. Alright, we're going to start with verifying the symptoms from the customer. I'm going to show you guys the interior of this vehicle. Here, underneath the steering wheel is the fuse box. So these fuse boxes in these old cars, they have these glass cylindrical fuses. And if you look in the middle fuse on the left column, you'll see a 20 amp fuse labeled tail. First thing I wanted to show you is where the fuse box was located. So I guess what we'll do, I back up here just a minute. This is where the light switch came out of, and I just pulled it out real quick. Alright, I've got a voltmeter in place here. I got it grounded on the door jar switch housing, and then connected with a jumper wire all the way back to my meter, and I got it on DC voltage. But first thing I want to do is I want to turn on the lights. Hopefully I can do that, and show you that the headlamps are working. Both sides headlamps are working, and we'll go back to the back here real quick and double check, make sure that the tail lamps are in fact inoperative. All right, let's find some voltage here. Okay, we've got about 11 volts DC. Battery's a little bit low. Now I'm going to check this tail lamp fuse. We can get some better light on that. You might have to take my word for that. And you see we got 11.25 volts there. And on the other side, nothing. No voltage, millivolts. So there's no continuity through that fuse. Now I'm going to pull that fuse and have a peek. Alright, I got that fuse pulled, and as you can see, it is broken. There's a piece out of the middle that's actually missing and dangling down in there. So we do know that that fuse is blown, and all of the customer symptoms so far are true. So I'm gonna, instead of putting a glass fuse back in, I'm gonna use jumpers, and I'm gonna hook in a regular old little plastic mini fuse because they're cheap and I got a bunch of them. Okay, I have jumpered across both sides of that fuse, pulled the fuse out and jumpered across it, and brought that down in a better area where I can see it. And I put in a substitute fuse. I got a fuse assortment here, and I grabbed a 20 amp, which is the correct fuse, the correct amperage fuse for this vehicle. Definitely not the correct fuse. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn the headlamps on and see what happens to this fuse. Oh, there it went. So if you can see, it is blown, and this wire is getting just a little bit warm right before that blew. Now these are smaller jumper wires, so that amount of current, 20 amps going through that little wire, actually heated it up a little bit, so it's a good thing we had a fuse in this circuit. I'm going to turn this light switch off now. We all know what causes a fuse to blow. There's just too much current. So normally in this vehicle, we would have power on the front side of the fuse, and on the downstream side of the fuse, we would have a load what would not exceed 20 amps actually. So it looks as though there's more current flowing through this circuit, and more current means less resistance. So there's either too much, load downstream, or there's actually a short, which is what I suspect. Old cars like this, they sit in barns a lot, and most likely what we're going to see is some type of maybe rodent damage. Okay, we're back. I've got a very expensive piece of equipment here that I've installed in the vehicle, an old headlamp. Now this is going to be quite a bit of a load. We're jumping this right across the fuse, so if we got power on the front side and a ground on the back side, then this fuse is going to light up. So I was going to put my ammeter in place, but I suspect that there's a short to ground, and we're blowing a 20 amp fuse, and the fuse in my meter is only 10 amps, so I think that I would blow the fuse in my meter. So if you think that's going to happen, do something like this. So let's turn this on and see what happens. Hey, we got light. So we suspect that downstream of this fuse is a short to ground. So we're going to keep moving. Well, one of the first things I like to do when I'm diagnosing a wiring problem is to obtain a wiring diagram. This, for those of you who don't know what it is, this is a service manual. It's made out of paper. It's not on the internet. It's actually something that you can take with you. So I had this for my own automobile, my 70 Impala, and like I said earlier, it's close enough to the 68 that a lot of these circuits are going to work. There goes my highlighter. Now these old wiring diagrams are a little bit different than maybe what you're accustomed to seeing on ALL-data or whatnot. So I did a little legwork ahead of y'all, and I found the light switch here and traced these circuits all the way back to the tail lamps. Now I didn't highlight every leg of the tail lamp voltage feed, but you can see it goes to the license plate lamp, it goes to the marker lamp, it goes to the tail lamp here, and so those splice here, and they come back to this connector that's going to be in the trunk. Now one thing we can do is we can start knocking pieces of this circuit off, and since there's an inline connector, the great thing to do would be to just disconnect that connector and see if we are disconnecting our short to ground. Now following that through, there is a piece of connector. It's certainly a lot longer than that. Following it back over here, it's called the Fisher body connector. Now that's just above the fuse block, and this comes all the way back here, all the way back to the light switch. Now that's coming out of this brown circuit. Now if you see, there's another brown circuit coming out, and it's going forward, so it goes up here and it goes to this bulkhead connector. And I haven't traced it over here yet, but I'm going to focus on just this leg. One thing you could do is you could take a pair of wire cutters and cut that wire somewhere where you could resolder it easily, and then just eliminate this entire leg. But since I've got an inline connector here, I'm going to disconnect that first and see if it changes our symptom. Alright, I got the trunk pop, and I've identified the inline connector back here, and I already loosened it. Now this is our inline connector. It goes up along the trunk and all the way back through and down there and underneath the body, and on this side it will intercept the tail lamps back here. So I think I might be able to get this disconnected. Okay, it took me a sec, but I got that connector disconnected now. Everything, all the lamps themselves have been removed from the circuit. Now let's go see if our symptom is still present. We got our old buddy the headlamp in there instead of blowing a bunch of fuses. Now I'm going to turn this headlamp switch on and see. Looks like we connected that circuit, and we appear to still have an excessive short in that down leg. So we don't think that it's in the tail lamp assemblies, and what we disconnected, we did not disconnect the short. So I'm going to reconnect that, and then I'm going to move upstream to this connector that's up here above the fuse box. Okay, I've got you here underneath the dash, and I found this connector right here, and I've disconnected that. Now this leg of the connector goes down underneath the carpet all the way into the trunk and back to that inline connector that we disconnected. This right here, that segment goes through this harness that I just cut apart and goes right to our switch here. So I've got that disconnected, and that is only the rear portion of the circuit. We still have a portion of the circuit going up front. So remember on that wiring diagram, we had two wires coming out of the, two brown wires coming out of that light switch. And if you look right here, there they are. So there's actually two parts to this circuit, and I've only just disconnected the rear portion almost completely. The only part left is between right here and that connector that we checked. Now I could hit that real easily with a ohm meter and just make sure both sides disconnect and make sure that's not shorted to ground. I've already done that. So it's this part of the circuit is okay, I can tell you that. So we got that part disconnected. Everything's still hooked up here. Let's see if our headlamp comes on. Sure enough. So basically what we're trying to tell you is nothing to do with the tail lamps cause this problem, even though it's a tail lamp circuit. So let's go back to the wiring diagram. Okay, here we are back at the wiring diagram. Now we've identified that this entire leg of the circuit is not shorted. So now we're going to focus on this leg. The other brown circuit that goes down into, this is your bulkhead connector, and that separates, you know, the inside of the vehicle from the outside of the vehicle. So flip the page, and I've traced that same brown circuit 20 gauge wire coming all the way up to this splice, and then it goes to the left side park directional signal lamp and the side marker lamp, and then it splices twice again. Those go up to the right side park direction signal and right hand marker lamp. So now if I could take and just cut that wire right there and do this headlamp test again, I'd have to say, you know, chances are pretty good that we've removed that short. Let's do a visual inspection first. Let's just see what happens. Now you may also be wondering, hey, why can't it be from the fuse box all the way to the light switch? Well, remember that the fuse didn't blow until we opened that light switch. So if the short was between the fuse and the light switch, it didn't matter what position that switch was in, it would still blow that fuse. That didn't happen, so we know it's downstream of the switch. So we're gonna do a visual inspection, see what we find. All right, now we're under the hood. We're going to go to the bulkhead connector. We're going to do a good visual inspection of this harness. So there's our bulkhead connector. You can see that bolt right in the middle. You take that out and the connector would come apart, and then, you know, you could repair that harness as needed. So looking at it right there, I would probably want to do a little bit better of a job, but I'm just doing it quickie right now. So I can see this harness comes down, goes into this wiring harness, comes all the way back. Looks pretty good. No screws poked through it. Now it goes behind the washer reservoir and then comes out right here. And then you can see, hopefully, right in the middle of the screen is our side marker light. So you can see these two wires coming around. And I did a little bit closer looking at them. They look fine. This in the middle of your screen right now, there is an inline connector. It's not on our wiring diagram, but it's a different automobile, so it goes through a grommet, and then we'll take you back underneath here, and you can see where that grommet comes out right there and then goes back around. Now I want to check right there where it's rubbing on that bumper brace, and now we'll get under here and show you where that wire goes across that brace and then goes to our lamp right there. So at least nothing's major right there. So I'm gonna keep this rolling This harness, if you can see where it came out, right there, there's our plug. Comes back into the harness, goes across, and goes back here underneath this radiator support brace, and then comes back here, goes behind the battery. That's a green wire, that's not our wire. And we'll keep going. Let's see if we can see that plug on this side. Alright, there's our plug. Oh, what we got there? Looks like the wires are pulled apart. Looks like there's two butt connectors there. Let me reach in there and pull those back. There we go. So there's a problem. Now that's not a short, but let's see where those wires came from. Oh my. Look at that. I hope you guys can see that. Those two wires pulled apart, and we've got a brown wire and a black wire that look like they're touching each other. Well, that sure could be a problem. Okay, we've got the battery removed. Got the beautifully crafted homemade battery tray there. Nice craftsmanship. Now we can look at this mess we got here. Of course, you can see the butt connectors. And then, hopefully, you can see these two wires are touching. Now I got them apart. I'm going to hold those separated. Now we're going to go back in the vehicle and see if our short went away. Alright, we're back under the column here. We've got the headlamp installed. I'm going to turn on the headlamps, see what happens. Oh, the light came on. Wonder what happened there. Well, you know that there is a path to ground through all them bulbs in the back and in the front. So there will be current moving through and a path to ground. So this is, you know, a series circuit. And there is potential across this load. So now what? Well, let's put that fuse back in. It doesn't look like that lamp's as bright as it was earlier. Less ground. So alright, I just went ahead and popped that 20 amp fuse in, and it looks like it's intact. Let's go back and see if those tail lamps are on now. It's a sunny day. We may or may not be able to see if these tail lamps are on. Hopefully you can tell that inside there is some action going on in there. That's just not sunlight. Definitely not very bright, but they're working. So we found the short. Now we got to repair it. Soldering always the best way to reconnect these circuits. Make sure you get her hot enough to flow good. One. Hopefully these wires will take it. It looks like they're going to take it. Alright. Alright. Got them wires soldered up. Heat shrink wrap. Got some electrical tape over the top. You know, it's not exactly a factory job, but it's functional. It's going to work. Everything's protected back there. I suspect possibly what may have happened was that battery slid over, and who knows if it was because of that box and that hold down or whatever, but it probably ripped those butt connectors off from a previous repair somehow. So now that I got the wires fixed up, I'm going to put the battery back in and confirm the repair. Alright, finally we've got the wires fixed up, and unfortunately I do not have a 20 amp glass fuse to put back in there. So I'm going to delay that until I grab one somewhere. Maybe look for one in the barn. But I got this 20 amp yellow fuse jumpered in there. Just want to check real quick just to make sure. I'm going to turn these lights on. Fuse is good. I'm going to come out here and check these lights again. Headlamps are on. Side marker lights are on. Let's make sure this, yep, that light that we put in. This one I checked, we got something here. I'm not too concerned about it. It's not blowing the fuse. Customer ain't too concerned either. Want to just double check, make sure these lights, if I can see them. Here's a side lamp that's on. And one is on. That one's on. That one's on. And other than the mud dauber, that one's on too. We got that one on. All right. Well, I think that's about where we're going to leave this one. We got an overview of basic electrical here. We got a pop fuse we fixed. We went through some diagnosis. We used some unique tools. And that's going to wrap this video up. So probably put a discussion board out there for you. Let me know what you think. This is kind of the type of video demonstration that will be common this year. So hope you guys like it. And if not, probably time to drop the course. Just joking, don't drop the course. We'll see you guys later.